Hi, I'm Maria Thea Harris or Velo Sews on social media. Thanks for watching and listening to Sober 50 podcast on Sew Organised Style. Today, Mary Conley-Gale, the Chief Financial Officer of Days for Girls Australia, is back to update us on their ongoing volunteer work. Sewing is not the only activity Days for Girls Australia does or requires. They don't just provide reusable period products to overcome period poverty, and Mary's going to tell us all about that. Please be aware that we will be talking about some very sensitive topics covered in this episode. Let's watch Mary now. Mary, thank you for coming onto the podcast today to talk about Days for Girls Australia and Days for Girls and how you all fit in. I'm really glad that you made the time.
Thanks so much, Maria. It's great to be talking to you again on your podcast. So thank you for the invitation.
I think, we did the podcast a couple of years ago and it was audio only. And I'm hoping that this one, because it's video and audio, we can show as well as describe all of the work that the Days for Girls Australia teams do.
I have our Days for Girls kits here. So I'll be able to show you all the different components of what we sew and what we include in our kits. And also an example of our flip chart that we use for our menstrual health education for the girls and women. And also we have an education program for men and boys as well.
Well, that's pretty good because you're covering the whole gamut of the social fabric that makes up our communities.
Correct, because our founder, Celeste Mergens, said that, if we're not educating the boys, we're missing out on half the population. And that's the only way that we can really and truly shatter the stigma around menstruation if we involve boys and men in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, menstruation impacts everyone, whether you're a man or a woman. If you're a man, you have a wife or a mother or a sister, a daughter, a work colleague, a friend who menstruates. So everyone is impacted, and it shouldn't be something we're ashamed of because it's a part of being a natural, healthy woman. It's part of being a healthy woman, menstruation. So it shouldn't be shameful.
It's a basic part of how we create families, how we create the next generation.
Correct.
The fact that that Days for Girls exist is to make sure that menstrual products and menstrual education is available for all parts of our society.
Correct. There's over 500 million people around the world living with period poverty. Now, period poverty means that they don't have access to products to use. They don't have the education around menstrual health. They don't have adequate sanitation or toilet facilities to change. So it's a wide gamut of things. And period poverty doesn't just impact third world and developing nations, it impacts first world nations. 1 in 5 people here in Australia have period poverty, are living with period poverty. That's over 1 million people, 1 million menstruators here in Australia are experiencing period poverty. In a recent survey called the Bloody Big Survey in 2024, conducted by Share the Dignity, they had over 150,000 respondents to the survey, and they found that it was 63% of Victorian respondents found it difficult to buy period products. In Australia, it was found that Tasmanians, the respondents from Tasmania, it was 10.7% of people had experienced period poverty in the last 12 months. And in the ACT, a bit over 5% of respondents had experienced period poverty in
Mm.
the last 12 months. So it's real. It's happening here. Many people always say to me, oh, but period poverty doesn't exist in Australia. It's one of those silent poverties. Wherever there's poverty, there's period poverty.
Yeah. And period poverty affects people's ability to go to school.
Correct. I mean, if you don't have um, the right things to use, you're
Yeah.
you're not comfortable in participating.
Yeah.
You're worried about staining your clothing or,
Yeah.
being bullied. I had a beautiful example from one of the food banks that we have provided our kids to. They had a single dad come in who was a regular to their food bank. And this day he looked a little bit upset. And the ladies were talking to him, and he was saying how he was really concerned because he couldn't get his younger daughter to go to school. She didn't want to go to school because last month she had her period and she soiled got blood on her clothing, and she was bullied and
Mm.
teased about it. And so this time she didn't want to go to school.
Mm.
And so they had some of our kits and they gave him one, and he actually had three daughters. So they gave him three kits. And then and they showed him how to use them and told him how the girls need to look after them and how to use them. Anyway, the next time he came in, he said to them, you know, I just want to thank you and thank the organization that donated these kits. He said, I felt I was failing as a father
Oh,
when I had to spend my money on buying milk and bread for their breakfast and lunch, and then I couldn't afford their girls' stuff.
yeah.
And he said, now my little girl goes to school with confidence.
It's a great story because he's now able to provide his daughters with that confidence because he understands and he's got the kits for them.
Correct. And with the proper use and proper care,
Mm.
um, our Days for Girls kits are lasting in the order of 4 to 6 years.
Wow. That's really good. That's a
We've had,
long time.
yeah, we've had some feedback that they're lasting in 6 years in quite remote areas where they are washing in streams and things like that. And
Mm.
that's why Days for Girls, we have a patent on our patterns, and we have quite good quality control for the sewing of our kits, the materials we use to make our kits and everything. So we only allow official Days for Girls teams to actually make our Days for Girls kits because
Okay.
we we make them to such a high standard. And the reason is we want to make sure what we give to a girl or a woman that it lasts them as long as possible.
That quality control has is demonstrated by the fact that the kits, as you've said, last between 4 to 6 years. That's a lot. That's a lot of usage. You said you've got some kits there. Should we have a look at them?
Yes. So this is what we call our full standard kit,
Right.
and this is how it comes to a girl.
Okay.
So it's this is our label.
Yep.
It tells you whether it's a regular size kit or an extra large kit and what size underwear are in the kits. And so our volunteers actually sew this drawstring bag,
Yep.
um, which carries everything in it. And then inside, we have this is our carry pouch. It's made out of a polyurethane laminate, which is a waterproof. And the idea of this is to take the soiled liners home. You know, you put your soiled liners in there. We also have a face cloth. We include a face cloth so that the girls can wash themselves when they change. Inside our standard kits, we include 2 pairs of underpants. We include, this is the main component of our Days for Girls kit, and this we call, it's like a pad or what we call a pod, a personal object of dignity.
Oh, nice.
As you can see, it folds down just nicely, can fit in a girl's pocket if she's taking it to school. So the two main components that we sew, our shield.
Yep.
So this we sew out of 100% cotton, and we tend to use quilters cotton because it's a better weave for us. And in the middle is again a polyurethane laminate,
Hmm.
which is the waterproof barrier.
Okay.
And we use 100% cotton because there's less chance of irritation for the girls.
Yep.
And then we have our liners, which is the main component of it. And
Yep.
again, these are made out of 100% cotton flannelette, so it absorbs the menstrual flow. And there's this section here we call our hotspot, and we fold the liner up, and that gives 6 layers of absorbency. And so this fits into the shield
Right.
just like this. This then just fits around the gusset of your underwear, just like a modest pad with wings.
Hmm.
So that slips in there, clips together, and there you
Uh-huh.
have the pad
Brilliant.
in your underpants. And the good thing with our design, you can adjust it for your flow. The shield is actually designed to hold 3 of these liners. So that's 18 layers of absorbency.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you've got a heavy flow, you can
Mm.
adjust it accordingly.
Yeah.
Or if you've got a light, so you might want 2 liners or 3 liners, and
Hmm.
then you can adjust it during the day. So in our kit, we provide 2 pairs of underwear, 2 of our shields, 8 of our liners. We also include a cake of soap to help with just washing and hygiene. And as I said, the carry pouch, the drawstring bag, and the face cloth. And in addition, we also have a little brochure, trifold, that talks about menstruation and what it is, gives you the menstrual cycle and how to calculate your menstrual cycle, and also just some questions. It's really hard for me to talk about things like this. What should I do? Why do I have a period and how often does it happen? Talks about the color of your menstrual flow can help you understand which day on your cycle.
Mm.
So give some basic education. In our Australian one, we also talk about product choices. So we talk about disposable pads and disposable tampons, washable pads, and also menstrual cups that, they're the choices people can make. And we also include our little care and use guide. So this shows them how to use their kit
Right.
and how to look after and launder it as well.
I'm thinking about the father and those pieces of information that are in the kit would have made his job for supporting his daughters so much easier.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So those are used for our local distributions. In addition, in Australia, our local distributions will
Yep.
sometimes use what we call our hybrid kit. So what that includes is all the main components. So it includes your two shields and your eight liners and the carry pouch. What it doesn't include is a drawstring bag or the underwear or
Right.
face cloth. So we'll talk with the receiving agency to determine what's the best
Mhm.
fit they think for their clientele for the kits.
Yep.
And all these kits are donated. They cost our teams and chapters around Australia, which we have 81 teams. They do all their own fundraising to buy the material to make the kits. And we donate all our kits as much as possible. We will receive donations in exchange for the kits. So we do explain the kits cost around about 22 dollars, 23 dollars to make, depending on how much we can buy the material for.
Right.
And then we've got a couple of dollars to be able to get them from a team to a collection point on each kit. And one thing I didn't say is the design of our liners. These were designed really when we were doing a lot, and we still do a lot in developing nations. And this doesn't look like a period product.
No,
So
it
when
doesn't.
people are washing it and hanging it on the line, and a lot of places they're communal lines, it does not look like a period product.
No, not at all. I mean, it could
So
be,
pretty.
yeah, it's pretty, but you could think that it might be, I don't know, something that's used
A
around the
face cloth
house.
or
I know,
yeah, yeah.
I know. So again, it takes away the stigma of having to deal with periods from the community when you're so close, when you're living so close together. We can't overcome it, but Days for Girls has done a lot of work to make
Hmm.
sure that the products that the teams are developing save their dignity, save the recipient's dignity.
It's correct. Saves their dignity, gives them confidence,
Mhm.
and lets them participate fully in everyday activities in life. When we do a distribution overseas, we try and do a full education distribution. Our For the girls and women, it's called our Ambassador of Women's Health training, and we talk about the female reproductive system. We talk about
Okay.
male reproduction system, and then we go into the stages of menstruation. When we do a distribution overseas, we have our menstrual health education for girls and women called Ambassador of Women's Health.
Yep.
And we also do a education for boys and men called Men Who Know. And our menstrual health education goes through puberty, female and male reproduction, menstrual cycle. For the girls' education, we do an in-depth look at the 4 stages of the menstrual cycle. We also talk, for the boys, we talk about strong choices and what it means to be a strong male figure in your community. It's about being there for women, standing up for women, and protecting women.
Mm.
We also talk, obviously, for the girls, we talk about looking after their kid and caring for their kid. We talk about how to um, track their menstrual cycle. And for both the boys and girls' education, we talk about how to identify trafficking. and how they can protect themselves from trafficking. And we also talk about STDs and how to protect yourself from STDs.
It's a lot of social education that you're providing, that Days for Girls is providing. So, with all of the work that's been done to develop the kits, is there much training that happens at the local level for the teams that are sewing them?
Provide the teams with all the training, obviously, on how to make each component of the kit. There's a lot of non-sewing components, so on a team level, we need sewers and non-sewers,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of non-sewing tasks as well. We also provide our team leaders with education on safeguarding, because we are a registered charity and because our product does go to the majority of our products go to young girls or vulnerable women. We do need to understand safeguarding, so our teams gets training on safeguarding. We also encourage our teams to undertake our Ambassador of Women's Health training and the Men Who Know training. These are free online courses on our Days for Girls International website. Anyone can do the training. It takes
Mhm.
about 2 hours to do the training. And it's amazing, as a woman, I went, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You really learn some things. So yeah, there's lots of training opportunity. We also, Days for Girls Australia, every 3 years we have a conference somewhere. In 2022, we met up in Brisbane. This year, we're actually going to be meeting over in Fiji because we have some teams in Fiji, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea. So we're going to Fiji for 3 days, and there we'll be looking at period poverty in Australia,
Yeah.
period poverty in the island nations. We'll be looking at advocacy and how we can advocate for menstrual equity. We talk team things like how to manage your team, how you can go about fundraising. Obviously, no Days for Girls conference would be a conference without talking about kit and making the kits and quality control of the kits. We also have our Days for Girls International CEO, Tiffany Larson, coming to Fiji, and our international global director, programs director, Layla Eisenzong, coming for the conference as well, which is really wonderful, especially for our island nations teams who will be coming across.
Mm. Sounds like some really good international support
Mhm.
for not only what Days for Girls Australia is doing, but for being able to establish and distribute further in the island nations.
And we always feel that it's so much better if we can get our local leaders
Mm.
to actually be the one leading the programs in their country. And we can support them. We can support them. We support our teams in the island nations with trying to get supplies to them
Mhm.
or additional kits, because they make the kits as well as doing the
Mm.
distributions, but the need is so great they don't have the capacity to meet the entire needs. So teams from Australia will support them with sending kits to them.
Oh, that's fabulous. Mary, before we finish, for people who are not involved with Days for Girls but would like to provide some sort of support, what do you suggest that they do?
They can support in a number of different ways.
Mhm.
They can support by making a donation to Days for Girls Australia. So if they pop on to the daysforgirls.org /Australia page, they can make a donation to us via PayPal. They can support a local team in their area. And if they go on to the Days for Girls International website and go where we operate and search for Australia, they'll see where all the teams are in Australia, and they can, I think every team is listed there with their email address.
Yeah.
And they can reach out to them and see, ask them to volunteer. If they can't find that, they can email australia@daysforgirls.org and ask to be connected as a volunteer. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. That's always a great way to see what we're doing and what activities. If anyone is in Sydney, we're having a gala fundraising luncheon in Sydney on the 18th of May. So that information is on our Facebook page.
And that information will be on this podcast show notes.
Wonderful.
Mary, are there any other final words you'd like to add? Because I'm so pleased that you could come onto the podcast.
I would just encourage everyone who, no matter what stage they are in life, to have conversations around menstruation with the younger generations. Talk to your daughters or granddaughters. Talk to your grandsons and sons.
Yeah.
And, if you're looking for something to do, if you're retired or if you're just at that stage of life where you've got extra time, reach out to us and find out how you can become involved. Because, before I got involved, I was involved in a lot of things. But there's some things in life, I know that I'm making a difference in a person's life. And you can't often say that, because I know every kid we get into the hands of a girl or woman that needs it, we're changing that person's life.
Yeah.
And it just, just warms your heart. And as Days for Girls Australia is 100% voluntary. We're all volunteers. No one in Australia gets paid. And we do it because we're passionate and we want to help as many girls as possible.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mary, for telling us more again about Days for Girls. I'm hoping that people will watch and listen to this podcast because it's got all of the details about what it is Days for Girls are doing, not just in Australia but overseas, and also how they can reach out and help.
Thank you, Maria. I really appreciate you inviting me to come and talk on your podcast. Thank you.
Oh, it's my honour that you're here, so thank you too, Mary. This episode of So Organised Style Podcast for Sober 50 was video and audio produced by me, Maria Theoharis, in my sewing room with permission of Mary Conley Gale. Sound by bensound.com. If you'd like to support the production of So Organised Style Podcast, pop over to the Patreon account. Make sure you direct message Sandy on Sober 50 to support their challenges and posts. Go back through the podcast archive to hear and see more people from the sewing community. There are over 480 episodes to watch and listen to now. I look forward to being with you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.